Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you guys. So today we're coming back to Adventure Phantom Knight, which we haven't really touched upon since towards the middle of Season 7 there, right when the Adventure package came out and we were playing all these decks. I was going to say new decks, but really a lot of old decks that have now been given new life by the Adventure package. And really Phantom Knights are one of those decks that not only incorporated the adventure engine into its plays by adding a negate onto its already existing combos, but really kind of reshaped how the deck was built and played by incorporating the adventure package into the combos themselves. So Phantom Knights is definitely probably the deck among all the ones that already existed that included the adventure cards that changed the most in terms of how it played. And I kind of didn't really give it enough appreciation of that. It's a really cool thing now that I've been coming back to the deck and actually more thoroughly exploring its plays, its combos, and just playing it more in general. It's a really cool playstyle, and I really like it a lot. Phantom Knights in general, I've just always been a fan of, and if you actually look at Master Duel meta, I was going to say right now, but that's at the time of recording this, which is the 20th, so it's probably not too far after this video actually comes, or before rather this video comes out. Yeah, if you actually look at MasterDuelMeta.com right now, you'll see that Phantom Knights is actually surpassed Sword Soul Tenyi as a tier 2 deck. Now, as always as ever, we have to remember that this is a tournament format or a tournament meta that the tier list is structured its power levels on, but it really goes to show that Adventure Phantom Knight was just being underplayed when it was like towards the bottom, I think, even of tier 3, even just like a week and a half ago. And honestly, I've noticed that a lot with this particular meta, especially since the Adventure Pack has come out. And I've said this before, power alone does not always make the meta. It's often, sometimes even a greater factor of just how much a deck is being played. It's very possible that, a deck could be out there and be a bit of a sleeper, not even just in terms that nobody's playing it, but in terms that, like, not enough people are playing it. Like, Adventure Phantom Knight, we're seeing it at the top of tier 2 right now. It's probably always been, power level-wise, like, at least a mid-tier 2 level deck. Or at the very least lower tier 2 level, but it sat in tier 3 just because not that many people were playing it. We saw that with Sword Soul Tenyi as well. Sword Soul Tenyi, there's such a huge disparity between, well, I guess right now, actually, if you look at the power levels, there's actually still a huge disparity between Adventure Pranks and everything else, but we started to see Sword Soul Tenyi, a couple of weeks ago, close the gap between itself and Adventure Pranks, and I think that mostly came about due to more people being like, oh hey, right, Sword Soul Tenyi, that deck, it's still good, and actually starting to play it again. And then, of course, on a ranked ladder, Sword Soul Tenyi has just practically been non-existent because, again, most people are sick of it from the last time it was popular, and two, playing the new adventure decks because they were like the new current hotness. But anyway, Adventure Phantom Knight in particular, this deck is definitely not only strong but also versatile, not even just in this build but as an archetype, right? There's so many different ways you can build this deck. Like, what I'm playing here is Phantom Knights with of course the adventure engine, which you don't even always have to play honestly with Phantom Knights, and then we're also doing the Scythe Lock here. I really like the Scythe Lock. I think it's one of the more powerful things you can do with the deck, and it's not that hard to include either. You just gotta make one space in the extra and main deck. You do have to go a bit out of your way in terms of like the actual plays you have to do, but in terms of like actual main and extra deck commitment space, definitely does not take that much at all. I'm also sticking to 40 cards. The average size for this deck, from, again, according to Master Duel Meta, tends to be about 44. I definitely see why people do tend to go over. However, I think people tend to go over more on variants that are focused on doing things like making Dark Requiem, F-Zero, Morongo Menad, that kind of a thing, where I think this particular variant can get away with 40, and that's another reason why I like this particular variant in general, with the adventure line and with the Scythe Lock as well, is because, like, yeah, we're not making like a bunch of extra negates on top. Like, we could be doing more if we went above 40 cards and included more extenders and or combo pieces. That is very true. However, I think that for particularly the best of one ranked ladder format, consistency is not is always, but tends to be king, right? Consistency is going to be a thing that I value more than, I guess, versatility of plays, because, you know, when it's best of 3 and you can side deck and you have games 2 and 3, that's a bit of a different story. But when it's best of 1 and it's, you know, every match basically is decided on one game, I think it's more important to be flexible in what you can do. That's why I, you know, always like including 3 of each Maxx and Ash and the Nibiru. I like including crossouts if possible. The Imperm, a lot of builds are playing 3 Droplet. I'm opting to play 2 and 1 Imperm, not only for going second and potentially opening Imperm, but also for hitting other Imperms with the Crossout Designators as well. I like 3 Crossout Designators because this deck is fairly combo oriented and is fairly susceptible to most, if not all, hand traps and other forms of disruption. So I could easily see myself going down to 2 though, and maybe just including like the 3rd Droplet or like a second Imperm. Probably a second Imperm over a 3rd Droplet, honestly. I do really value the Imperm's flexibility there. Yeah, that said though, like I said, there's a lot of different ways that you can build this deck, and don't think that this one variant is the only one. Again, I just like it because it's easier to get down to 40. I like having 40 cards because, again, I like having, I like opening, you know, hand traps and going second, and I like opening my Crossout Designators for my combos and going first, just again making everything more consistent there. So, yeah, as far as like the build itself goes, I did rebuild it like from scratch. I don't think it's too different from the one I featured last season, though. I think it's probably only like, I think it might even only be like a 1 or 2 card difference, to be totally honest. The extra deck I know is a little bit different. Like I took out Downerd and some amount of other stuff I don't remember off the top of my head. We're including the Raiders Knight and Arc Rebellion line once again, which we actually weren't playing, I think, in the last variant for some reason. And then I don't think I was playing Appaloosa either. This is always just a good fallback play, you know, when you have a bunch of stuff on the board, but your opponent's negated, like the thing that keeps you extending. It's often very doable to go into Appaloosa, but more often than not, much like with Adventure Prank Kids, your fallback play is going to end up being DPE, which is, of course, very, very easy to make with just any, well, rather, the Vert Anaconda is very, very easy to make with any 2 effect monsters, and of course, used in the Fusion Destiny. We all know how it goes by this point, so. Alright, as always as ever, we've got some gameplay to take a look at with this build. Let's go ahead and break the build down card by card before we jump into those games. So we are playing 3 Maxx, 1 the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak, 3 the Phantom Knights of Silent Boots, 1 the Phantom Knight of Ragged Gloves, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 the Phantom Knights of Torn Scales, 2 Water Enchantress of the Temple, 1 Destiny Hero Celestial, 1 Artifact Scythe, 1 Destiny Hero Dasher, 1 Wandering Griffin Rider, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Reinforcement of the Army, 2 Fusion Destiny, 2 Rite of Aramesir, 1 Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, 1 Fateful Adventure, 2 Call by the Grave, 3 Crossout Designator, 2 Forbidden Droplet, 1 Phantom Knight's Wing, 1 the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine, 1 Infinite Impermanence, and 2 Phantom Knights Fogblade is going to round out the main deck here. Extra deck will contain 1 Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, 1 Leviair the Sea Dragon, 2 the Phantom Knights of Breaksword, 1 Raiders Knight, 1 Arc Rebellion Xyz Dragon, 1 Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS Sky Thunder, 1 Link Spider, 1 Salmon Great Almirage, 1 Cherubni Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss, 1 Artifact Dagda, 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda, 1 the Phantom Knights of Rusty Bardish, 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, and then of course 1 Access Code Talker. Okay, so now that we have established what the build is, let's go ahead and take a look at these games. Alright, the first game that we're going to end up taking a look at here is going to be against Fluwandereeze. So nice that we get to show off a matchup against an anti-meta deck here. I know this is one of those decks that I'm sure a lot of people who play this deck are like, how do I beat that? Well, and not only that, we're going second against Fluwandereeze. We do have the Imperm, though. That definitely helps. That's why I really like including Imperm. I just mentioned in the profile just now, but Infinite Impermanence is, I think, up there with, I think, C and Ash and Call By for me, where it's like, it's part of a, I've seen it referred to, and I think it was a meme on the subreddit as like the quote-unquote Master Duel tax, where like, if you're going to play competitively in Master Duel, you pretty much always have to include this card in your deck, so, hey, I don't always mind. Sometimes it makes deck building easier, just being like, okay, well, I have 10 cards that are automatically going to go in, but, I mean, obviously, I do see where it can be a bit tiring as well, so, yeah, I'm going to use the Foolish to set up the Water Enchantress here, since I've already got the Griffin Rider in play. Might as well try to have it online. Plus, that would be, you know, better than, I think, just sending the Ancient Cloak for the Torn Scales here, although that would be plays as well. The opponent does have the call by to stop the water Enchantress, but I'm fine with that because that means the call by is not going to mess with my DPE here. So I should have actually battled with a DPE first, just in case I needed to use it in response to whatever back row my opponent had, but it's not really going to matter too much. I will use it during the battle phase, specifically DPE to pop the back row, because if it's Dreamtown, I don't want them to activate it during my main phase too. So I often like to pop back rows during the battle phase for that reason against various decks, just to make sure it's not something that activates specifically during the main phase. That can be relevant against prank kids too. If you're trying to pop a face down Pandemonium, make sure you're trying to do it not during the main phase so they can't respond. So opponent does have the Eaglin for the Rabina, getting the Ryza here. I'm just making sure, actually, okay, so this DPE is going to interrupt them, but I did actually specifically wait until they searched with the Rabina before I used the DPE, because if I activated DPE in response to Rabina being summoned, they could have just searched another Fateful Adventure monster that would have gotten them another normal summon, and then they could have tribute summoned anyway. So I don't know if maybe it was a timing issue, or maybe I just didn't. See, I had it flipped to on at this point, but for some reason it didn't give me a prompt to activate DPE upon the resolution of Rabina's summon, which is what I wanted to do. Pop DPE and then either Rabina or Eaglin here. That would have left my opponent with no more, well rather one more normal summon, so they could have summoned the barrier statue, but they wouldn't have been able to tribute summon the Ryza or whatever else they plan on summoning. But I didn't get that prompt. I don't know why I didn't, but fortunately for me, my opponent actually summoned Impen and not Ryza here. If they would have summoned Ryza, I don't know that I would have been able to come back from that. I don't think I would have been able to be totally honest, but they actually summoned Impen, which is completely fine with me because my DPE is already in defense mode, so Impen is not going to be able to stop it here. Although that said, I will have to save the DPE for the wind barrier statue here. I cannot use it on the Impen, which actually, here my opponent's going to play these cards and then go to battle phase. If they had moved to battle phase with only the Impen on the board, I would have been, I don't know that I would have been forced to, but I would have used the DPE's effects probably to pop itself in the Impen. Then they could have summoned the barrier statue main phase 2. I wouldn't have had an out to it, and then I couldn't have brought back my DPE during the next standby phase. But because my opponent did it the way they did here, I'm actually going to be able to pop the barrier statue in response, so I will get my DPE back during the next standby phase, and now I have an out to the Impen for my turn. And then also, yeah, I don't really know what was really going on with this, with these plays here on the Flanders player's part, but we take it. we take those. Yeah, we also take this Torn Scales that we managed to peel off the top of the deck here. So bringing back DPE. I'm going to use the Celestial to draw a couple of cards. Opponent is going to have an Ash, but I do have the call by face down, so that is not going to end up being an issue. It would have been an issue if we didn't have the call by down, but because we need something to discard with the Torn Scales. But nope, we have the call by, we have the out, so gonna get rid of the Ash there, draw our 2. It doesn't even particularly matter what we draw, to be like totally honest. Like, yeah, it's a Scythe and a Crossout, whatever, it doesn't matter. All we needed was one card to discard for Torn Scales, really. Sending the Cloak will allow us to fetch the Silent Boots, which we can then special summon. I am going to pop the Impen with the DPE, just to make sure that's off the board and not interrupting our plays here. Summoning the Silent Boots, we're going to then send those off, that in the Torn Scales, rather, for, of course, the Cherubni, the Trubni, as any seasoned Phantom Knight player knows, or even beginner, really. If you've played any amount of Phantom Knights, you know that Cherubni is the start of pretty much every single Phantom Knight play ever. Okay, we're establishing the Torn Scales, setting up the Leviair here. Yeah, at this point, I'm kind of doing like a regular combo, but I'm also just going to stop once I get enough attack points to go for lethal and just do that, because, I mean, pretty confident my opponent's not going to have anything to stop me here, and then even if they do that, I can just keep going with my regular combo. But sure enough, this damage is going to be more than enough to finish off the opposing Flanders player there, so yep, definitely a good game there. Let's go ahead and move on now to the next one. Alright, so this game is going to be against Heroes. Definitely love playing against Heroes because I just love seeing Heroes in action in general, even if I do have to be the one beating them there. No, I do love Heroes. Although, missed opportunity, how can you play Heroes and not be playing the Skyscraper board of Stratos? Come on now, in my opinion. In any case here, so yeah, I actually opened with a dead hand, and I was debating if I should even normal summon the Ragged Gloves, but I was kind of thinking about summoning the Ragged Gloves, sending it for Almirage, and then setting up the Ancient Cloak and Grave, potentially, or just maybe even leaving the Ragged Gloves on the board. I don't know, there's a lot of different ways that you could play it out, but I thought that maybe by setting up the search for the Torn Scales, or even doing the search, like just using the Ancient Gloves this turn, that would, or the Ancient Cloak rather, to search the Torn Scales for the next turn, that might be better just to give my opponent fewer opportunities to like banish it from the graveyard, or like ash it, you know, later after they draw an ash if they don't have one right now. But honestly, as soon as I normal summon the Ragged Gloves, my opponent pops off a Maxx, which is not an incorrect play. I actually, that is when I tend to use Maxx against Phantom Knights, is as soon as they normal summon a Phantom Knight, because it's not uncommon. You know, we're playing 3 Silent Boots, and that is like one of the main ways that the deck typically starts its plays by summoning a Phantom Knight and then specialing Silent Boots. So I don't fault my opponent at all for activating Maxx here. I do not think that was incorrect. I guess I should say I think that was the correct play. It's just kind of worked out really well for me here because I already didn't really have much of a play anyway. So getting the Maxx out of their hand for free, definitely a welcome reprieve. And I'll just throw down the call by here before passing over to the opponent. I've got the Nibiru, so I'm not too worried, but well, now that I see that as a hero lives as well, now I'm thinking, okay, the Nibiru is definitely going to be live here, so I'm not really concerned about that at all. And they actually don't have another hero monster in their hand, it seems, as they sat to sack the Stratos for the Ferris. I actually make note of this a little bit later in a decision I end up making during their turn here, but yeah, for now they're going to keep going with their plays. The decision is actually coming up right here, so as soon as the Mali gets sent to the graveyard, I actually flipped this to on here so that I could activate Call By upon the resolution of Vion's effect, because I wanted to get the Mali out of the graveyard, knowing that my opponent didn't have any hero monsters at all in their hand, and I know that again because they had to sacrifice their Stratos in order to tribute summon the Ferris, just to be able to keep their plays going. I want to cut them off from as many resources as possible, and if I wait till even like, you know, the resolution of Vion's effect, like basically if I left it on auto and not flipped it to on, then my opponent would have gotten a prompt to make their next play, skipping over my priority prompt after Vion's effect resolved, and then they would have been able to activate Malicious Effect, banish it as a cost, and then I wouldn't have had an opportunity to activate Call By. So that's why I activated Call By when I did, and that's also why I'm using it on the Malicious here, because I want to cut them off again from as many plays as possible, and I know by cutting them off from Malicious, it's going to make them a lot harder, if at all possible, to make DPE, because again, I know they don't have any other hero cards in their hand, so that is why this Call By is being activated here. I'll make sure to point that out, because that was actually a pretty important decision that I think I ended up making here, so... in any case, so they are still going to get to use the Vion effect to banish the Ferris and add a Poly, which they're then going to fuse into the Adoration, I think? Vision Hero? Yeah, Vision Hero Adoration, that's the one. Which is going to beat over my Ragged Gloves, but it's definitely not nearly as bad as what they could have done had I not gotten rid of that Mali there. Again, DPE would have been a certainty at that point. So as my opponent goes to end their turn, I'm going to throw down the Nibiru here. I do still want to do that, even though all they have is an Adoration, because... if one of their face down cards, particularly the one they just set, is a Mask Change, I don't want them to go into a Dark Law during my turn. So I was pretty confident too that it was a Mask Change. Again, given that my opponent had so many other cards in hand, none of them were hero monsters. It was fairly likely, in my opinion, that that card they just set was Mask Change. So they do have the Ash Blossom for the Ancient Cloak here, which is definitely a little bit annoying, but it doesn't mean we don't have plays. I am actually going to plan on summoning DPE here, using this Ash Blossom in my hand. But first I want to battle over the token. The opponent's got a Droplet. I'm totally fine with that. I'm very, very fine with them using their Droplet to, because it means that not only have the Droplet, they not only no longer have the Droplet, rather, but that extra card in their hand, which was a super poly they probably couldn't have used anyway, but still, we definitely like to see them using up their resources like that. So, like I mentioned during the profile, DPE, as always, is a great fallback play. And we were able to do so here. I'm going to activate DPE now to try to get rid of the back row. That's going to force them to use their face down Call By. A little annoying that it banishes Celestial, and I'm not going to get the draws there, but as long as, you know, it's definitely better that than banishing my DPE itself. So now I can also get rid of the token as well. I don't have to wait till next turn in order to do that. So that puts my opponent in top deck mode with me having a DPE. Definitely what we like to see. However, my opponent actually did get a really good top deck. They got the Adusted Gold, which is going to let them get the Dark Calling, which is going to let them get the Evil Hero Fusion, whose name I can't remember, that can't be destroyed by card effects. Not only can it not be destroyed by card effects, but it can also blow up all my stuff and attack directly. Now, even if it does get to blow up all my stuff, it's only going to go up to 3,400 attack and would leave me at 200. I will still use DPE's effect to pop itself in the Anaconda in response, because they're going to get destroyed anyway, and that's going to save me 400 damage, which it probably won't be relevant, but I mean, you never know. So yeah, we're going down to 600 here. This game is definitely going down to the wire. The DP itself will not necessarily be enough, but this Fateful Adventure will. So I also wanted to point out too that I was thinking about, and you do want to think about this too, during my opponent's turn, as I was realizing how this was going to play out against their Evil Hero Malicious Bane, I'm thinking about this Phantom Knight's Wing that I've been holding in my hand, and I've been holding it in my hand and not setting it just in case I top deck Torn Scales. I want something to discard, something good to discard with it. So I'm thinking about this Phantom Knight's Wing, and I'm like, if I don't top deck something that lets me out the Malicious Bane, then I can summon the DP back in attack mode, set the Wing, my opponent goes to battle during my turn. Well, see, the problem is they would have been able to activate the Wing, or they would have activated the Malicious Bane, but then I could have chained Wing, that would have saved the Bane, or the DP from being destroyed by the Bane. They both would have had 3,000 attack. It still would have been destroyed by battle, but it wouldn't have taken damage. So again, I'm just thinking about all this, right, as my opponent's doing their turn. I'm thinking about, like, just how to stay alive at this point. Staying alive, not dying, definitely my top priority, but top decking this Fateful Adventure solves literally all of our problems. We can just activate the Adventure, add Water Enchantress, send Water Enchantress, banish Water Enchantress, activate Rite of Aramesir, get the token, Fateful Adventure, add the Dracoback, equip the Dracoback, use the Dracoback effect, bounce the Malicious Bane, and then swing with the token and DPE for lethal. Spoiler alert, I guess I said it all before it happened, but I mean, we all knew it was going to happen. In any case, so definitely a very nice down-to-the-wire game against heroes, which is exactly the kind of game I like and exactly the kind of deck I love to have that kind of game against. So, good game, go Naso. I respect literally every single hero player, so GG, my friend. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next game. All right, so this game is going to be against Bird Up, which I haven't played with or against that deck. God, I don't even know the last time, especially against. I'm pretty sure I played with it before I played against it, but I think the last time I played with it might have even been before Sword Soul Tendy came out. It might be time to revisit that deck at some point, but we were going to end up taking the second turn here, but fortunately the opponent doesn't have like a full combo. They're also going to have a decent amount of plays here though. So they go for the Recital Starling, using that to set up the search for, I believe it was the Nerval here? Yeah, the Nervals. They then pivot into their Tri-Brigade plays, which always makes me nostalgic when I see people making Tri-Brigade plays, or making them myself. I'm actually definitely looking forward to the branded fusion stuff coming out, not only because of the deck itself, I think looks neat, but it enables some variants of other decks, including Tri-Brigade. Particularly, I know there's the Tri-Brigade Mercurier, which makes like a hybrid Tri-Brigade branded build. And not only just possible, but I think actually decent. So, you know me, literally any excuse to play Tri-Brigade, I will definitely be taking that. So, fortunately, my opponent does not set up the Simorgh here. Maybe it's in their hand, although I thought, or not the Simorgh, the Apex Avian. But yeah, this can summon from hand, so I don't know why there wasn't an Apex Avian here, but we take that. I mean, we take those all day, because that is definitely not something I'm trying to deal with if I don't have to. So I'm going to start with the Adventure line here, and I'll use the Shade Brigandine to get the Dracoback in my hand so I can set that up for the Griffin search here. Given my hand here, I was planning on using the Shade Brigandine here anyway, so as I'm looking at it, right, my initial thought process was, okay, I've got the Shade Brigandine and the Silent Boots. I could set up a Vert Anaconda, even though I have the Fusion Destiny in my hand, to provoke like a negate or as many responses as possible out of my opponent, and then once they stop either my setup for my Vert Anaconda or the Vert Anaconda itself, then I can just drop the Fusion Destiny and DPE them anyway. I was also kind of debating about like maybe going into like some kind of weird Rusty Bardish player, like maybe even an access code potentially, but I didn't really think that was going to happen here. Just again, keeping all my options in mind. Priority definitely wouldn't be to set up the Griffin Rider if possible here. They are going to have the Featherstorm for it, but I'm actually totally fine with that because, you know, even though the Adventure engine can be used as more of a combo line within the Phantom Knight deck itself, it's funny, none of these games I really do a standard combo line. I'm thinking I'll do a combo guide for this deck as well so that we can see some standard combo lines and how to set some stuff up, but I guess my past self playing beat me to the present self talking here. What I was getting at is that we're still going to be able to set up a Scythe lock here, even though we're not going to really have like a, quote-unquote standard line of play. That's kind of the cool thing about this deck, is that it's really not too hard to set up something like a Scythe lock. So I'll battle over my opponent's stuff, and then the plan is to now, of course, well, see, here's the thing. I was going to use DP's effect, and then it got negated, and I was like, wait, what? And I'm trying to remember what exactly caused it to get negated. Was it, I don't remember. I should have been paying more attention. I even made a mental note to try to pay attention to that when I watched this game back. But, yeah, so as I was sitting there trying to figure out what happened, or, like, how to set up a Scythe, which I'm pretty sure I still could have if I really wanted to. Well, I did want to, but that is when my opponent... It says they connect failed, but I think it was one of those like rage disconnects, to be totally honest. Maybe, who knows. But all right, we've got one more game. Let's go and take a look at it. All right, last game here is going to be against Eldritch. Definitely one of the just proverbial boogeyman of the format. The eternal boogeyman, really, of the Master Duel format. Eldritch has kind of always hovered around like that tier 2. This has always kind of served that tier 2 anti-meta deck slot. So going second yet again. Opponent is going to set up a bunch of cards as well as their Eldritch before passing over to us, so definitely not an ideal way to start the game, but yeah, it is what it is, and what can you do? We do have the adventure line to start with, so there is that. I will start with the Water Enchantress. Normally I do, in other decks, like to activate Foolish and then try to set up a bait, and then if they don't take the bait, then I will send the Water Enchantress anyway. But with this deck, we actually do have other targets for Foolish that are good for combos, so... Especially with the Silent Boots in hand, I can send like an Ancient Cloak and then use that to search a Torn Scale, and then summon the Torn Scale and then special the Boots. So I'm going to save the Foolish here and do my adventure stuff first. Excuse me. So yeah, the opponent's going to have the skill drain. I'm not really concerned about the skill drain. My plan right now is to just bounce it with a Dracoback, but my opponent's got the Huaquero of the Golden Land here, and that's going to banish the Dracoback out of my graveyard. So that line is out of the question. However, I do have another plan for getting rid of this skill drain. And I'm actually going to use access code talker of all things. And that might seem a little weird, like how am I going to set up an access code? We actually just saw here, right? I'm especially in the Griffin Rider. I'm basically setting up my play as though I were normally going to do it, but obviously I can't normally do it because I they have the skill drain up, rather, and I have to get rid of that. So, like I mentioned, I'm just going to go for an access code talker here. I'll use the adventure token to go into a link spider, and then I'm just going to send all 4 for access code. I don't care that it's only going to be or that it's only going to be 2,300 attack points, because I'm going to banish it. Because here's the thing about access code talker, right? And why this is about to work here. As you can see, I'm going to use access code to get rid of skill drain. That might be a little confusing, but why that worked is because skill drain can only negate the effects of face-up monsters while they are face-up on the field. But, and the card even says, but their effects can still be activated. So we activate access code talker's effect to banish a link monster to destroy a card on the field. Now, banishing access code talker from the field means that now, as a cost, specifically as a cost, because we did that, that means that when the effect now goes to resolve, access code talker is no longer on the field. It is now banished, and then its effect will resolve, and we can pop the skill drain. Now, you might be thinking, well, that used up all of your monsters, now you don't have any plays left, right? Not necessarily. We can banish the Silent Boots to add the wing back, and then banishing the Silent Boots lets us bring back the Torn Scale. Now we can activate Torn Scale's effect, sending the wing in order to set up a Ragged Gloves, and then we can use the wings effect, banishing it to bring the Ragged Gloves back. And then from there, we can get super polyed, and the opponent's going to summon a Starving Venom Dragon on us, which was unfortunate that did happen to be the opponent's last back row here. So yeah, that's going to make coming back a lot harder. That said, I did still want to show this game and that line, because I wanted to show off that, like, there are often ways, not often, definitely not often actually, but there are sometimes ways to get around floodgates that might not necessarily seem obvious at first. Skill drain being one of the more universally hated, and because it's one of the more universally useful floodgates, I wanted to show a non-obvious way to out skill drain, because it is kind of something that I see it not a lot, but like I see questions occasionally of like, how is this deck supposed to out floodgates? And unfortunately, with a lot of decks, a lot of the time, the answer is that you just can't. There's not always like a magic bullet to out a floodgate every single time, but you can happen into scenarios where that is possible. So I wanted to show off again, I wanted to show off a scenario where we were actually able to do that here, even if we're ultimately not going to end up coming out on top as a result. Again, I know that's a little bit spoilery, but it's not too difficult to tell that this game is not going particularly well for me at this point. I am going to be able to Ash to Scarlet Sanguine, and then as the opponent moves into the battle phase, I can still use the Droplet to have the attack of both their monsters and, you know, not die here. Or so I think, but I forgot about a certain effect of Star Venom to destroy all special summoned monsters on my field when it gets destroyed. So it turns out they're going to be able to blow up my token anyway and attack directly with the Eldritch for game. So yeah, again, even though we did not manage to win that game, I did want to show that game because it does showcase a non-obvious out to a skill drain up against Eldritch. And I know, again, that's something that people would probably really appreciate seeing. So, all right, now let's go ahead and move back to the, or not back, yeah, we'll just go to the outro. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you very much for watching all the way to the very end like this, especially those of you who are also commenting and or subscribing. Comments as always as ever, because I am always trying to branch out and try a different deck. It seems like just about every day of the week. I'm always looking to those of you who are more dedicated players of just about any given deck I'm playing to kind of help shore up my gaps, the gaps of my knowledge when it comes to like combos, when it comes to plays, when it comes to deck building. If you ever have any suggestions or advice, please feel free to leave those in the comments. They're helpful not only to me, but to everyone who's watching as well. I'm all about that community-based learning, and I love to see you guys sharing tips there in the comments. And subscribing, a great way to support the channel, as well as, again, just means a lot to me personally. And it's also a good way to get notified of when my videos drop, which does happen every single day. So you do have daily Master Duel content to look forward to when you subscribe. But yeah, that is going to do it for today, though. So without further ado, this is XLex, signing out. Hope you guys have a fantastic day.